workers now! Free the Maruti workers now! Free the Maruti workers now! Free the Maruti workers now!
Free the 13 now! Free the 13 now!
Free rights are human rights. Labor rights are human rights.
Free the Maruti workers now! Free Maruti workers now!
In India, the Maruti-Suzuki Workers, they were framed up by the company with the support of the government, and they're going to be facing life imprisonment for 13 workers. This is a frame-up by the government to shut down the workers. They don't want the workers to have any democratic rights. We say that workers have the right to form unions. Workers have the right to fight oppressive conditions. And workers in the United States support the right of the Indian workers. We demand hands off the Maruti-Suzuki Workers. We're saying that workers all over the world have to unite. Our struggle is your struggle, and your struggle is our struggle. These workers faced oppressive, dangerous health and safety conditions in the factory. They were treated like slaves by this company, and that led to an explosion that left the death of a manager. The company now wants to frame up the workers and say that the workers are responsible. They had 113 workers in jail illegally for a long period of time. Now they've had a fake trial, a kangaroo trial, and they're jailing 13 for the rest of their lives. We say free these workers. Free the Maruti-Suzuki workers. Free the workers in Maruti-Suzuki.
Scott, I'm on the executive board of American Federation of Teachers Local 2121. I'm also a delegate to the San Francisco Labor Council and co-chair of the Social and Economic Justice Committee of the Labor Council. We're here today to show our solidarity with these oppressed workers in India, just as we show our solidarity with our own comrades in this country when they're oppressed. Labor rights are human rights, and to deny the people the right to organize and fight against an oppressive employer and to jail them for crimes they didn't commit is the ultimate injustice and the ultimate denial of their human and labor rights. We demand their freedom.
My name is Alan Benjamin. I'm also a delegate to the San Francisco Labor Council from Office Professional Employees Local 29. I was in Mumbai, India last November at a World Conference Against War, Exploitation, and Precarious Labor. And I met two of the workers who had just been released from jail after 4 years, Pardeep and Ram. These two workers are among the 13 who face life imprisonment as a result of the court decision this past Saturday, March the 18th. These workers in 2011 started organizing, and they finally, this is in an area, an industrial belt, where the regime is seeking to do anything it can to prevent unions from forming. These are slave sweatshop conditions. And they finally got a union recognized, but the bosses refused to bargain collectively. And they brought in provocateurs to bash heads and to then blame the workers for the violence. It was these provocateurs who were responsible for the death of this factory manager on July 18th, 2012. It's a frame-up to prevent union organizing. Modi is just another version of Trump, with just another version of all these anti-union bosses. And so we've joined together. We're part of an international campaign organized by the International Workers Committee Against War and Exploitation for Workers International. We've joined together with United Public Workers for Action. In this joint action, we'll be back until these workers are free. 13 sentenced to life imprisonment for no other crime than organizing a trade union, helping the workers to fight back the contract worker system, where they're fired the minute it comes time for them to become permanent workers, they're fired. The conditions are atrocious. Steve earlier mentioned them. So I'll pass the mic on to others. We're here. We're going to be delivering this statement from more than 50 individuals and 10 national organizations to the council here, Mr. Venkatasan Ashok, and we're expecting that this message will be relayed. So I did want to finish by saying there's a message, a solidarity message from Vasudevan, Nambiat Vasudevan, which I can read after others have spoken, and another message from Anand Singh, a message to this great rally. Anand Singh is the president of the hotel and restaurant employees, Local 2. I will read their messages after others have had a chance to speak.
My name is Charles Minster. I'm a retired trade unionist, member of Senior Disability Action. I stand in here in solidarity with the brothers who have been imprisoned for a life in prison. It reminds me in the United States of the MOVE commune in Philadelphia. 9 people were sentenced to life in prison, 30 to 90 years in prison. They've been in there since '85 for the death of a cop who was killed in the crossfire. They blamed this on the MOVE commune, and they've kept them in prison since that time. And recently here in the United States, a woman who held a green card, she was an immigrant from Central America, voted a couple times. She got 8 years in prison. So you can see that the capitalist justice is the same, whether it's in India or in the United States. Luckily in this country we still have a semblance of a labor movement that can stand up to this kind of stuff. But in India, they're on a right-wing capitalist rampage to try to bring India up by its bootstraps, quote unquote, and I'm sure Trump will give them some help, and anybody else in the imperialist circle will give them some help as long as they get a piece of the action. So this regime in India, a right-wing nationalist regime, is trying to make India safe for capitalism and hopefully even imperialism, because they've always got in India eyes on China. So I proudly stand here in solidarity with the brothers in struggle in India and free them now. Thank you.
And we also have with us an international guest from Colutas, which is a federation of militant independent unions in Brazil. Herbert Claros da Silva. He's also with the metal workers in Sao Paulo. And they are fighting the same things that workers in India fighting workers in the United States are fighting. Welcome, Herbert.
Thank you. I'm a member of CSP Colutas. I am a metal worker. The union, São José dos Campos Union, represents the General Motors workers, auto workers, like as Suzuki Workers in India. We support this struggle. We support all demonstrations around the world against this prison of these Maruti-Suzuki Workers in India. We condemn the government, the Indian government, to maintain these workers in prison, and because it's a human right, the right for the strikes. The right for the strikes, the workers' strikes, is a human right, because it's important, these struggles. And I would like to also solidarity for the Argentina General Motors workers, because 300 workers in Argentina, Rosario, fired for General Motors in Rosario, Argentina, and would like to send solidarity to these struggles. The struggles around the world is very necessary for the workers. It's necessary solidarity to support against attacks, for the companies' attacks, for the governments that support only companies, don't support the people, don't support the workers.
Ralph Schulman.
Thank you, Steve. Sisters and brothers, I'm here on behalf of Taking Aim and in solidarity and in conjunction with the United Public Workers for Action, along with U.S. supporters of the International Workers Committee Against War and Exploitation and the Campaign for Workers International. Workers across the length and breadth of India have come to the defense of the Marutis 13, leaders and grassroots activists of the Maruti-Suzuki Workers Union who have been framed and sentenced to imprisonment by an Indian court under the most brutal conditions. The sadistic targeting of these rank-and-file workers draws upon caste hatred of the Dalit, whose defiance of the caste system infuses their persecution with racist and feudal malice underlying the institutional venom of the privileged across India. These dominant forces in India sought to impose a stooge union to strangle resistance. The grassroots elected executive of the Maruti-Suzuki Workers Union galvanized support of workers at the Maruti-Suzuki Haryana car assembly plant. But their real crime, brothers and sisters, was to lead a series of militant industrial actions of mobilizing popular support through walkouts and sit-down strikes that threatened not merely the sweatshop regime of Maruti-Suzuki, but ubiquitous conditions imposed by major employers, foreign and domestic, in plants across India. The current frame-up of the Maruti-Suzuki draws upon a management-inflicted fire of July 18, 2012, followed by a feverish but failed attempt to blame the workers, deploying paid so-called witnesses who are unable to provide a shred of evidence that linked a single worker, let alone the 13 worker leaders centrally targeted. The company then purged 2,300 workers, to this day unable to establish where, when, and how the fire was lit. The coordinated campaign of international resistance gives globally to the joint platform of the workers. And what is important to understand, brothers and sisters, that what we see unfolding across the length and breadth of India is but a reflection of what we suffer as workers in every part of the world, where the bosses can collude with those who are determined to sabotage the efforts of rank and file, to substitute a workers' apparatus that betrays and destroys the struggle of the many. We have to continue the struggle to unite people across the world until workers declare power in their own name and establish the means through which they impose, through popular organization and struggle, a society worthy of the name and defends the rights of the oppressed everywhere.
Nambiath Vasudevan, chair of the Trade Union Solidarity Committee and one of the longtime organizers of the fight to defend the Maruti-Suzuki Workers Union. He convened an international delegation that traveled and that issued a report from the International Commission for Labor Rights. And they met and they showed with facts and figures how the company brought in the provocateurs that instigated the struggle, that instigated the fight, and were ultimately the ones responsible for that fire on July 18th. He gives us background on the struggle and welcomes, he says, I'm in the true spirit of international trade union solidarity. We have received unprecedented support against exploitation and oppression from more than 40 countries for our 13 comrades who have been sentenced to life imprisonment. I'm glad to know there will be a protest action in San Francisco organized by United Public Workers for Action and the U.S. supporters of the International Committee Against War and Exploitation for Workers International. It will steel the strength and strengthen the determination of the Maruti workers, and they will win eventually. We know that. We heard Comrade Ram Minner, one of the 13 facing life term imprisonment, who was a delegate to the conference in Mumbai in November 2016, where he was a delegate, and he said that even the death penalty would not deter him and his co-workers in their fight against capitalist exploitation. In Mumbai, too, workers will be organizing protest actions on the 21st of March, and this struggle will intensify in the coming days. On April 4th, there will be an all-India day of action to demand free the workers, put an end to contract worker system and exploitation. And I don't have it with me here right at this moment, but a message was sent from Anand Singh, he's from Indian descent, president of HERE Local 2, solidarizing with this rally today, saying he couldn't be here because there are negotiations, wishing us success, and saying that he will continue to work with us to ensure that justice prevails and that the workers, the 13, are freed. Free the Maruti workers now! Free the Maruti workers now! Free the Maruti workers now!
There's 50 tech workers have been laid off, and by the University of California, by the regents and the president of the university, Napolitano. And they brought in a H-1B Indian worker to train them to replace their work and send it to India. Now, this is really what's going on. Who benefits from that? The workers in the United States don't benefit by outsourcing and privatization, and the workers in India don't benefit from that either. The bosses benefit. And what we're saying in this government, the Modi government in India and the California, which has a Democratic governor, a Democratic legislature, are allowing outsourcing to benefit the capitalists, the profiteers. So our struggle is to unite both the union workers and the U.S. workers together. Our enemies are not the workers of India, and American enemies are not the workers of India. The American workers' enemies are the bosses, the same bosses who benefit off of exploitation of the workers here and the workers in India. That is what we're aimed at, and that's what we're going to fight, and we're going to continue this fight until we're successful.
Can you come? I'll call to my officer. I'll call to my officer, he will be there.
Well, we'd like to make sure that this letter
Yes, I
is
know.
delivered.
No, he's going to let me do it.
Okay?
And give to me also. Okay?
Well, we'd like to see it delivered to the
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, he's going to do that.
You're gonna do it.
Thank you, I will deliver to my officer.
Can I come with you?
एक मिनट आना सर. He's coming.
I am shown, and you are,
I'm Venkat from consulate.
and your position in the consulate?
I'm the consul community affairs.
I see, okay. So we would appreciate this going to the consul general
Okay.
and for him to send it to the ambassador.
Okay.
To relay it to the ambassador in the diplomatic pouch,
Okay.
however.
Okay.
Thank
This
you.
is with regard to the. It is mentioned here.
Yes, it's for workers in India who've been unjustly sentenced to life imprisonment. And there's been a long-standing case involving many workers who were organizing for their rights. And,
Yeah. You would like me to give it to hand over to
right,
consul general.
yes. And if it's possible to get confirmation from him, is there a total address on our hour?
I think we will take because it is being given. It will be taken care of.
Okay.
Sent to the consul.
And we know you understand that union rights are human rights. And you respect governments, enlightened governments respect both. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the case of the Maruti workers?
It was mentioned yesterday. I think.
Yes,
Yeah, they were
Maruti
mentioning
Suzuki.
here.
It's front page news in the Hindustan Times in India. And we, working people, unions, supporters of democratic rights are concerned everywhere, all over the world, in more than 40 countries. There's activities this week with this demand, and we hope that this will be relayed and given the highest consideration.
And in addition to these 13, many workers were unjustly imprisoned for several years, unable to support their families, and they've all been released because there were no charges, anything, but they were imprisoned for years. And to save face, the corporations have insisted on these 13 workers being sentenced to life imprisonment. You can imagine the repercussions, and particularly for many workers throughout India who are just asking for the right to organize a union. Something as simple, as basic, to be able to have a discussion in an organized fashion about working conditions and wages.
It's not just
It's
the
so
sentence-
basic.
It's not just the
You
sentencing
yourself
itself.
would, you know,
But
want
the
to be able.
conditions in prison are absolutely barbarous. To call it torture is to use a mild term as to how they're actually treated. They're
but-
brutalized on a constant basis.
If you yourself would like, you know, appreciate an organized discussion about your own wages, your own working conditions, and those of your family, your friends, so you can imagine how people who work in a factory feel. They too want those rights.
Anyways, we
convey
thank
So
you.
anyway,
We
thank you.
Thank you.
We
Thank
thank you for coming
Yeah,
down and
please.
taking that.
Thank you.
And we also struggle in this country for the same, many of the same reasons. We're not pointing fingers at India, we're pointing fingers at injustice here. All of
Hey, thanks a
one
lot.
of the virtues of international work is solidarity.
The rain stopped for us.
Thank you.
Maruti workers now. Free
And as Steve just said, we will be back. We will find actions. We might be back here. We will organize on April 4th to be part of that National and International Day of Action for the Maruti-Suzuki Workers.
Free the Maruti workers now. Free the Maruti workers now. Solidarity, solidarity, solidarity. Free Maruti workers now. Free Maruti workers now. Shalom Menesar. Shalom Menesar. Shalom Menesar. Shalom Menesar. Shalom Menesar. Shalom Menesar.
13 now. Free the 13 now. Free the 13 now. Free the 13 now.